everyone, welcome to this evening's webcast about fracking Barclays, a how-to guide. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Danny. I work for 350.org and am involved in supporting the week of action on the 24th to 29th of October, targeting Barclays. And we're targeting Barclays over their support of the fracking industry, specifically their ownership of Third Energy, who've just been given the license to frack in Ryedale, which is the first fracking license in 5 years in the UK. So this is a big moment, and we've got a whole load of amazing speakers this evening on the webcast to take you through a whole range of issues. So I'll just talk you through what's going to happen. So first of all, we're going to be hearing from Peter and Sue Allen from Frack Free Ryedale about the situation on the ground, the amazing work they've been doing fighting fracking there. I'm then going to give you some practical information about the week of action and how to be involved. We're then going to speak to a whole range of campaigners about the work they're doing for this week of action and get inspired about the things that are going on and get some ideas. And we'll be hearing from Emily from Frack Off London, we'll be hearing from Chris from Sheffield People and Planet, and we'll be hearing from Anna from Friends of the Earth. We're then going to go to Dan Glass from Beautiful Trouble UK in a session about creative tactics, inspiring actions to get our kind of creative actions juices flowing. We'll then have a Q&A. And any questions you have throughout the presentation, you can put them in the chat box next to the video, or if you stick them on Twitter with the hashtag Frack Barclays. So that's the lineup for this evening. It should take about 45 minutes. And the aim of this webcast is really to, to get informed about what's happening in Ryedale, to really share the message about the week of action in October and the ways that people can get involved. And really kind of get us thinking and get inspired and encourage as many people as possible to take action during that week. This week of action is really an invitation for everyone to stand in solidarity with the campaigners in Ryedale and take this to Barclays. The decision in Ryedale is a huge political moment in the fight against fracking, and there are many of us who care deeply about fracking. And just because it's not happening in our backyard doesn't mean that we can't get involved. So by targeting Barclays, this national target, it means all of us have a Barclays near us and can send a clear message that it's completely unacceptable for Barclays to be funding the fracking industry. So yeah, this is really an invitation for everyone to kind of take it to Barclays. Barclays is a really we see as a strategic target because although Third Energy, who've got the license to frack in Ryedale, they're a fossil fuel company. That's their core business. Whereas Barclays, as an investor, is much more sensitive to investor pressure. We've seen effective action on Barclays before through the South African apartheid campaign, and we also know that Barclays are invested in the Dakota Access Pipeline, which is a huge fight going on in the US right now. Yeah, we hope we take this moment to stand in solidarity with Ryedale and really build on the huge momentum of the fossil fuel divestment campaign all over the world. So that's the kind of context. And without further ado, I will pass over to Peter and Sue to tell us what's going on in Ryedale. Take it away, guys.
Hi everyone. We retired to Ryedale 14 years ago. And for those of you who don't know, Ryedale is an extremely beautiful part of the country with areas of outstanding natural beauty and the wonderful North York Moors National Park. People come up here for holidays and to enjoy the peace and tranquility, the wonderful food, the wonderful views, etc. You can imagine what a shock it was when 2 years ago we found that we were threatened by fracking. A small group was formed, first of all, and in order to oppose it. And this has grown so that we now have 10 affiliated local groups determined to stop fracking before it even gets going. The economy of Ryedale is heavily dependent on tourism and agriculture, both of which are threatened, very vulnerable to this dirty and destructive industry of fracking. Quite simply, if Ryedale, along with other parts of the country where fracking is proposed, are fracked, then they will become wastelands. And Peter will tell you what we've been doing.
Thanks, Sue. Evening, everybody. Just to pick up on a point that Sue said, I think it's worth pointing out that the state of Victoria in Australia, who recently said that they will be banning fracking, one of the principal reasons for doing that is because of the effect on agriculture and on tourism. So what's been going on in the last 2 years? Well, as Sue said, we've now grown into a considerable number of people from the original few who sat around a kitchen table two years ago. We've had rallies, we've had demonstrations. I think it would be fair to say that it's the biggest demonstration that's ever been seen in Malton when Frack Free Ryedale walked through the town. There have been pressure put on, thanks to Frack Free Ryedale council members on councils. Ryedale District Council have put a moratorium of 5 years on fracking. All the town councils, of which there are 4 main ones, have come out against fracking, and most of the parish councils have voted to oppose fracking. When Third Energy applied to frack at their existing well in Kirby Misperton, known here as KM8, there were over 4,000 objections to that application, many of which, well, most of which came from Ryedale, although as Sue will be pointing out later, a lot did come from outside Ryedale. What's equally significant is that there were actually 36 letters of support for the application. So I think it would be fair to say that as far as Third Energy is concerned, they've got absolutely no social license to frack in Ryedale. We've spent a huge amount of money. There was a very comprehensive and big document which cost us experts and time to produce, and which was put forward as our submission in opposing the fracking. This money has been raised by individual subscription. It's been raised by fundraising events, and to be quite honest with you, we do need more money at the moment. And I'll just bring you up to speed on this one. Third Energy haven't actually yet got permission to frack in Ryedale. The Yorkshire County Council gave the go-ahead. This has now gone to judicial review, which again is going to cost us more money. But hopefully on the 22nd and 23rd of November, the result will come out in our favour, and Third Energy are going to have to think again. So where do Barclays fit into this picture? Well, as has been pointed out, Barclays own 90% of Third Energy, over 90% of Third Energy. I think the actual figure is 97%. If Barclays can be persuaded to withdraw their support for fracking, then I'm afraid that Third Energy, I'm not afraid, I'll be very pleased that Third Energy will no longer be able to carry on with the work that they're doing at the moment. So what will we be doing? Well, I think probably like many areas in the country, there'll be protests outside Barclays branches, and I'm assured that there will be a lot of other activities and actions going on the week beginning the 24th of October. So I'll hand you back to Sue, because I know that she has 1 or 2 other things to say. Thank you very much.
Hi. Yeah, we can't miss this opportunity to thank everyone who's supported us over the last 2 years. We're really grateful to the many other anti-fracking groups from all over the country who've supported our demonstrations and rallies. It gives a tremendous boost when the Lancashire bus arrives and the formidable Lancashire nannies join us, and you wouldn't want to argue with them. It's essential that we all stick together and that we build a national anti-fracking awareness and opposition. We're delighted that so many people are going to support us in the fight against Barclays. We hope that everyone will help in protesting against them in order to bring about, obviously, a successful conclusion. Thank you all again very, very much indeed.
And thank you for everything that you and Frack Ryedale have been doing to kind of ward this off for so long. It's really inspiring, and it's really great that we can kind of come and support you. So October the 24th to the 29th, we're all going to be taking action in solidarity with Frack Ryedale. The aim of the week is twofold. It's about hammering Barclays, which we will do in the local media, through letters to the branches, and through reflecting all of this activity on their social media so they know what's going on. It's also an opportunity for us to build the movement, to get more people involved, and help with the national engagement in this issue. So how to get involved? So obviously this is a call out, this is a call to action. Everyone is invited to take part in this week of action in whatever way they are able to. There's going to be a huge range of actions, and both People and Planet and Friends of the Earth have produced action guides that have got leaflets, posters, suggested actions, and there'll be template press releases and things like that coming along, and letters to bank managers in the near future. There's an action map so that you can post your action or your event online, however big, however small, so that we can all see the range of activity that's going on. Everything will be shared on the hashtag Frack Barclays, and we will aggregate all of the beautiful photos and the actions and make sure that Barclays is aware, very aware of the activity targeting it. And we'll work on doing template press releases and sharing this story, this national story, like aggregating all of the work. And you can find all those resources on the website, GoFossilFree/UK, the Barclays action. So that's how to get involved. And now we're just going to do a quick, here's some quick kind of points from some people who've already started planning actions, just to hear kind of the range of stuff that's going on. So if we could hear first from Anna from a Friends of the Earth perspective, that'd be great. Cheers.
Hello. Yeah, so I'm Anna from Friends of the Earth. We've been working quite closely with Frack Ryedale for the past couple of years since the application was put in. And we've been working specifically on targeting Barclays with those people. One of the things we did was we set up a petition for people to ask Barclays to stop divesting, sorry, not stop divesting, don't do that, stop investing in third energy, which one of the local residents from North Yorkshire handed in at the AGM this year. And Barclays didn't respond to that as we would have liked them to, and in their response they suggested that fracking was in line with their values as a company, and that they didn't think there were any risks, and we don't agree with that, and Frack Ryedale certainly don't agree with that either. We've done some actions against Barclays in the past. Last year in November, there was a day of action against Barclays, which was very much focused around getting lots and lots of people to sign the petition before the hand-in. So it was mainly our local group network across the UK, had lots of stalls outside of Barclays, were raising awareness about the kind of thing that Barclays were investing in, also raising awareness about fracking in general to people across the UK. As Danny said, Barclays being a target is really positive, because it means that lots of people who care about fracking across the country, who can't necessarily always get to site battles in places like Yorkshire and Lancashire, were able to take part and show solidarity and support for the people facing fracking in their communities. So yeah, the sorts of things that we're doing is we've put together an action pack to help different groups, both Friends of the Earth local groups, frack-free groups and other groups across the UK, take action as part of the Week of Action. And that can be anything from, again, having quite a similar leaflet stall and getting people to sign petitions, which some groups feel more comfortable doing, to doing something a bit more creative. One of the things that one of our groups did at the last day of action, our Huddersfield group set up what they called a Frackalicious cocktail bar, where the members of that group dressed up as waiters and waitresses, and they stood outside the Barclays branch in Huddersfield with trays of clean Yorkshire water straight from beautiful springs, and on the other tray they had some disgusting looking liquid, which was representing what fracked water could look like if fracking came to Yorkshire. And it was a really fun and engaging way to talk to people about what were they doing, while these people dressed up in silly outfits giving out disgusting water to people, to talk about the effects of fracking. And also they got a lot of support on the petition. And we had other groups during that week doing photo stunts outside of branches. One of our local groups borrowed, there's an enormous puppet called Mr. Frackhead, who is an evil fracking well monster, and he visited one of the branches in Leeds, along with some of local group members who were dressed as the Barclays Eagle, who were kind of doing some engagement with kids and families about the way fracking would affect people in those areas. So yeah, there's loads of different ways that people can get involved, and if people would like to have access to some of the action packs and the resources we've got available, we can make those available for everyone.
Amazing, thank you, Anna. That sounds great, and we're just on the hunt for some photos that we'll share with everyone here, because that sounds great. So Chris, you're from the People and Planet group at the University of Sheffield, and I understand that you guys have some plans for the Week of Action.
Yeah, we do, absolutely. I guess I'll really quickly talk about some of the action that we've taken at Sheffield People and Planet against Barclays over the last year, and then I'll talk a bit more about what we're planning for the Week of Action and to prepare for that. So we've taken action against Barclays for their investments, or almost whole ownership, of Third Energy twice. Once was an occupation or a sit-in in the biggest bank, the biggest Barclays in Sheffield, where we erected a fracking rig inside and outside. That was really like fun action, where we got to do a lot of singing and really like kind of disrupted their operations. And then the second one was actually just after it was announced that Third Energy had been given a license to frack in Ryedale. We called a public demo, and hundreds of people gathered outside the Barclays in Sheffield, made a really big noise and kind of a statement of intent and solidarity with Ryedale, really letting Third Energy and Barclays know that we weren't going to let them frack there or anywhere, in fact. Yeah, and so moving on to this Week of Action, Sheffield People and Planet and also Sheffield Students' Union have been organising quite a lot around fracking to raise awareness around it. So we're going to be putting on talks, a panel discussion in the lead up to kind of educate especially new students about fracking and why it's so like relevant to the local area. We're going to be having craftivism sessions so that people can prepare materials for the action that we're going to do on the Saturday. And so I think what that will like allow us to do is really like offer different levels of opportunity and engagement for our new students. So that's anything from coming and learning to kind of doing some crafts, which kind of simultaneously allows us to practice like healthy activism, as that's like a really kind of nice therapeutic social thing to do, to then doing the action where, without kind of giving too much detail about what we plan to do away, we want it to be really vibrant and colourful, another showing of our kind of like intent, and a point from which we can mobilise new emerging activists and give them kind of a foundation from which to plan future escalations, to really kind of keep a concerted campaign against Barclays and against Third Energy.
Wow, amazing. Amazing, that sounds so great. Go Sheffield P&P. That's wicked. And so our final example is from Emily, who is involved in Frack Off London. And yeah, take it away.
London, on the Saturday, the 29th of October, we're planning a creative action targeting a Barclays branch in London. We're going to hopefully be bringing some people from Ryedale to the branch of Barclays to help bring fracking home to Barclays kind of centre in London. We're going to use administrative blockade tactics, which were used in the anti-apartheid divestment movement, and we know that they were successful then, so we're going to try and kind of copy that and do that again. On the day, we're going to also be kind of trying to engage the public, tell them about fracking and the effects of it. So there'll be lots of different ways to get involved on the day, so you can keep posted by signing up on the actions map. There'll also be another action happening in London, so keep your eyes peeled for other things happening.
Thanks everyone for sharing kind of your plan so far, and I hope that's given people a sense of some of the things going on and ideas. So for the next bit, we are lucky to be joined by Dan from Beautiful Trouble UK. Dan Glass is an award-winning activist, educator, host, performer, and actor. He was named Attitude Magazine's campaign role model for LGBTQI youth and the Guardian UK Youth Climate Leader. So he's a big deal, and he's been involved in lots of things. And one of those is Beautiful Trouble. And so now which is a kind of creative actions toolkit, which highly recommended for everyone thinking about, how we do our activism and strategy. And he is going to just talk us through some examples and some ideas for the next 10 minutes.
Hello everyone, thanks so much for having us. This is the book that is called Beautiful Trouble, and it's a tool book for creative activism and using art as a tool for power. I really love the sound of the Frackalicious cocktail group, Mr. Frackhead, that's going to make me chuckle for a while, because they're really good, memorable, outstanding examples of how, essentially. And just for the next 10 minutes or so, was going to go through a small presentation of exploring tactics for really challenging Barclays in this example, but also raising the stakes and getting our message out there and being effective. I guess the first tool that is central to Beautiful Trouble and a lot of different groups' activism is called the Spectrum of Allies. It's not actually on the presentation, but I just wanted to talk about it. It's building a wide spectrum of allies across unexpected alliances, which the powers that be wouldn't expect us to be connected with. And Barclays really help us do the job because they're such criminals in so many ways. Different groups and social movements are angry with them for tax avoidance. In London alone, they've been targeted. We did a protest with London Palestine Action and other Palestine groups for their role in investing in illegal arms companies, which are supporting the occupation. Tax avoidance by groups like UK Uncut and Occupy. Groups like Fall Vedanta because they fund hugely environmentally destructive dams across the world. So Barclays is a really good target and for us to build allies amongst those other groups and all get together to really build strength and do a lot of brand damage and financial damage in the long run to them, hopefully. So that's exciting. And then just in terms of going through different kind of case studies. So what the book Beautiful Trouble does, and we've got a training in London on the 1st and 2nd of October. So do get in touch on dan@beautifultrouble.org if you're interested. And we've got one in Leeds coming up, Manchester. And if you want one in your community, get in touch. So what Beautiful Trouble does is it breaks things down in 4 areas. And I just wanted to go through a few to give a taster. Principles, tactics, case studies, and theories. We'll start off with a quote from the good old Noam Chomsky, who says that if you go to one demonstration and then go home, that's something. But the people in power can live with that. What they can't live with is sustained pressure that keeps building, organizations that keep doing things, and people that keep learning lessons from the last time and doing it better the next time. So it's been really inspiring to hear about the wealth of different groups who are planning a series of actions. So it's not just like, one-off things. And I just wanted to go through a few. Some of these are going to be more relevant to focusing on banks than others, but we can use our imaginations to see how we can target Barclays using these tactics. In the Barclays HQ and doing a big banner hang, that could be outside their offices, outside their banks, in their shareholder meetings. Examples here, I hope they come in.
Oh, have we frozen Dan?
Unusual people to make a dozen. Shit. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, you're back now.
Back, great. Off banner hang. But we gave a few examples. Here's a human banner again. Oh, this American fund. Then we've got other banner hangs, whether we do them using balloons, do them on the streets, do them hanging from buildings. Then we're going to go to this one I really like and can be used really powerfully. What's called an artistic vigil, using grief as a tool for activism. And that, focusing and looking at who really are the impacted people, both on environmental and human grounds, by Barclays' actions, pulling people together and having an artistic vigil, which both is super powerful because grief is something very alchemical and scares everyone, really, whether you're a corporation or an individual human being. So not only what it does is sends a powerful message, because it really highlights the institutions and the constituencies who are directly affected, but it's also, and I think this is so important, a space for us to grieve about what they've been doing to our communities, to our environments. And therefore, once you have a space to grieve, it spurs further action on. The next one, we've got Guerilla Projection. As you can see, hopefully in the corner here, this was an action by Occupy in America, highlighting the 1% and the 99%. And there's many different groups and organizations who we know we've got probably large scale projection devices, which can be really creatively used, again, on their headquarters, on their shareholder meetings, which can really massively conflate their brand damage onto their buildings. Distributed action. Now, this one's really relevant here in terms of animating the wealth inequality, who's benefiting from Barclays and who's not. So basically dressing up as our enemies as such, and playing, having it up in terms of how they're benefiting. So here you can see again, it's Billionaires for Bush, an example from America again, which highlights who's really benefiting. So it could be a really joyful and sarcastic, satirical action to do outside Barclays. The next one, which has been done very well on Barclays in the past, is a good old occupation. Have as many people in the bank as possible. And what UK Uncut did a couple of years ago, which was really inspiring, and we'll go on to it a bit more in a second, is not just occupy it with banners and placards, but whilst you're occupying it, using that valuable space as a space for dialogue and action, and creating a new situation, whether it's a workshop to discuss how we're going to build a long-term strategy against Barclays, or as UK Uncut did, because they were trying to highlight how tax is being used and how money is not being spent in other places. They turned tax avoiding companies into libraries, into creches, into youth spaces, because it shows who's benefiting from tax avoidance and who's bearing the repercussions. Here is the next one, which is in terms of doing messages at night as well as in daytime, because we don't just want to work in the parameters which they set us. We want to transcend that and challenge them and become stronger every time. So challenging them at night time with different illuminated actions shows that we're watching them night and day. Now, this is one which I think is probably resonant in different environmental and fracking campaigns, is trekking. And this is the example of Gandhi in the Salt Marches a long time ago. But it's just the power of walking or moving in solidarity with each other from village to village, community to community, who are affected by the same impacts of fracking. Not only joins up communities, makes friendships, builds strength amongst communities, but shows that we're joining the dots, which they don't want us to. By the way, just tell me when to shut up. This is one of my favorites. This is the Yes Men, again in America. And the tactic is identity correction. And they dress up as the people that we're trying to challenge, with fake press releases, fake websites, fake email accounts, and pretend that, well, in this case, they pretended that they were Dow Chemicals, who were the villains behind the Bhopal disaster, which has killed thousands of people, and there's been no accountability, let alone justice. And they got onto BBC World News and said that Dow are accepting full responsibility for the crimes that they caused. Now, just think about how this could be replicated against Barclays, and the shareholder prices against Dow in this case really went down. So not only financially was it very effective, but showed the power of infiltrating them when they think they're too powerful to be infiltrated, and let alone getting on BBC World and having that huge coverage. So let's just get excited about what we can do against Barclays there. The next one is prefigurative intervention, which we kind of touched on before, about how we can occupy the banks, but also turn them into something that we want to exist in this world. Obviously, with fracking, with all injustices, we're so busy on a day-to-day level, trying to keep our heads above the water and challenging the everyday impacts of that oppression, that we don't often get time to vision what we want the world to be or how we want to exist in the world. And this is the example of turning something into a daycare centre, or what we could do with Barclays in terms of turning into a number of things. This is a classic example, I love this, of prefigurative intervention. You put your money in to the parking meter all day, so you have the space, and this is an environmental action, and not just a social action, talking about what our communities can be without being taken over by cars and the whole capitalist, consumerist, environmental disaster that is constant everyday pollution. So they built community and they took over the space, they challenged emissions in that very space, and you can tell they were having a great old time. Media jacking. This, you can see these two actions here where you get into both events that you know are going to be filmed and are going to be on TV. For example, this one with Condoleezza Rice, they're looking at the Iraq war, they've got blood on their hands at the back of the room. And this is another anti-war action by Code Pink. I mean, another classic example, if we're looking closer to home, was the incredible action by Sisters Uncut at the Suffragettes movie premiere in Leicester Square. They got on the red carpet, all locked arms, lay on the floor. I can't remember off the top of my head what the slogan was. Dead women can't vote. Whilst all the cameras were there. So when you know the media are all going to be there, use that opportunity to get in there and undermine your opposition's narrative by hijacking their event and drawing attention to your side of the story and to capitalize on your target's media. Just going to do a few last ones because I think that's nearly my time up. Creative disruption. Again, this is like when you know, for example, that Barclays are going to have a big shareholder discussion. Get up there, get in the building, dress the way that you need to do to get in, or go there earlier in the day, pretend you're helping set up the event. Do what you need to get in there and drop your own banners. A really good British example of that was a couple of years ago around the whole Heathrow third runway expansion. It was at the Architects Award done by Plain Stupid. And the different architects were vying for credit for putting forward strategies to build the Heathrow third runway. Now, what some dear friends did was that they got in there earlier in the day, and they were sitting around a table. They looked the part. They had all the smart clothes, etc. But then they took the stage. They ran up, took the stage, and gave the "You Don't Give a Shit" award to the architects who all wanted to win the contract for Heathrow Third Runway, and talked about the realities of what the Heathrow Third Runway is and what it could do to the community underneath the flight path. And I'll finish on something that I'm a big fan of, is glitter. And glitter bombs have always been used. Oh no, it's gone. Glitter bombs, they're pretty harmless, so you're not going to get in too much trouble for that. But to expose and disrupt the public relations efforts of the powers that be, you know, this is particularly useful at speeches, hearings, meetings, fundraisers, and the like. So I hope that's a good few examples of how we can raise the stakes and raise our imaginations and keep ourselves excited at the potentials of winning amongst the really depressing reality of environmental and human destruction. Again, there's the training in London on the 1st and 2nd of October. And then if you want one in your community, and also I'd love to hear from people about case studies, principles, tactics that have been good in your community that we can use to make the Beautiful Trouble UK handbook. Is that all right? All right, wicked.
That's absolutely perfect. Thank you so much for that whirlwind tour of some badass actions. Well, thank you to all of our speakers. That was really amazing. We've got a bit of time to do some questions, so do keep posting them in the chat box or sending them in. We've got one which I'd like to direct to Sue and Peter, if that's okay. And so it says, how do we educate the public on how dangerous fracking is? I have a hard time presenting the problems and people just don't want to listen. So in the case of Ryedale, how have you worked with that?
Work indeed. It takes a huge amount of foot leather. It takes a huge amount of time. One thing you can do is to let people know of the actual realities of what fracking is going to mean for their community. And to do that, you can always turn to the information that's given to you by the fracking companies. For instance, INEOS gave us a very clear rundown as to how many wells they expected within each pedal area, which was really quite terrifying. And when you multiply that by the amount of infrastructure, then I think anybody who's wavering is going to be thinking twice about fracking. But to be honest with you, it's a matter of talking to as many people as you can, going to public events, catching people round here. It's agricultural shows we can catch people, and leafleting. That's what I say. It takes a lot of shoe leather. I think virtually every house in Ryedale at some time or another has had a leaflet from the anti-fracking. And 2 years ago, nobody had heard about fracking. Now, I think it will be fair to say that virtually everybody in Ryedale has heard about fracking, and a lot of and a lot of them are taking a genuine interest in it. So, sorry, I can't be any more help than that.
Yeah, if I could just add, we have held events, quite large events in schools. At one, we had 400 people. We invited guest speakers, specialists, a doctor and environmentalist, and a member of the church, an ex-bishop, who spoke about it and talked in great detail about exactly this, about the dangers of it and why it will be such a disaster. And it was actually very well attended. But again, you've got to get the leaflets out. You've just got to do the work, really. Local meetings in village halls. These aren't terribly well attended, but it's surprising how the word spreads. If only 10% of people take notice of what you're saying, and those 10% tell another 10%, you know, it does build up. It's just very, very hard work. Where we are, it's a very conservative area with a small and a large sea. People don't like going against the government, as Mr. Cameron has told them is going to happen, then it'll be all right. So it's going to be all right. So it's very, very difficult, but you've just got to keep plugging away at it. We had a series of meetings at home. We invited just the village. It's only a small village, but we invited people from the village to come for a social evening. We told them what it was about. They weren't under any illusions that it was just a social evening. But we told them, we invited them and we showed them a DVD, one of Ian Crane's DVDs. And that really shocked people. Now, I can't say that everybody was converted, but there were some spectacular conversions and people have gone on then to become major movers in Frack Barclays. So it's worth it. You've just got to keep plugging away at it. I'm sorry we can't be any more help. It is incredibly difficult because there is an inbuilt opposition. Because if the government say it's all right, then it must be all right, you see. But of course, we know that's nonsense.
Thank you so much for that, guys. That was great. I think, Dan, you wanted to chip in on this one as well. Oh, hang on, I think you're on mute.
Oh, bollocks.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now? Wicked. In terms of like how do we raise consciousness in general, I guess in the context it could be, I know what it's like, it's so depressing when people don't put their head above the parapet and listen, but I guess just to draw back in terms of like theories of creating social change, one writer and activist who I really like is called Joanna Macy, and in her book called The Great Turning, she talks about how there's three main areas of social change, which obviously critical consciousness and education is one of them, and we all kind of inhabit more one of them more than the other, but just by our natural interest and tendencies. But they are essentially confronting bad things, whether that's people disrupting conferences, occupying arms manufacturers, occupying Barclays, etc., confronting, stopping business as usual. The second part of it is raising consciousness, whether that's reading groups, whether that's distributing flyers, whether that's doing like the artistic vigil, which isn't stopping business as usual, but is creating a space for consciousness raising. And the third one is just general spirituality, how we can create spaces for goodness, essentially, whether that's permaculture projects or different educational programs. So you see they fit into the three areas: confronting bad things, creating good things, and general consciousness raising. So in terms of like how do we educate people, I hope there are three different arenas to do it in. And then just lastly, within educational projects, there's another methodology which I really like called the head, heart and hand. So if you're creating a flyer, a leaflet, doing a workshop, create a balance for the intellectual understanding of fracking. So what are the social, political, financial issues behind fracking? The heart, the emotional impacts of fracking. And like we've heard, it's like the impacts in the community, and you really need that space because it's so painful, you know. And the hand, what can we do about it? The trick is in the balance in educational programs. If you're too stuck in the head, you'll be an armchair activist. If you're too stuck in the heart, you won't get out of bed in the morning because it's too depressing. If you're too stuck in the hand, you'll just be knee-jerk and reactionary. There's got to be a balance. And the last point is, if you look at all, it's not always the case, but most of successful movements today, their messaging is so clear. You look at it, you get it straight away. And again, I'll use the example of Sisters Uncut. They cut services, we bleed. You get it straight away when you read it on the paper, and that can help with different educational campaigns as well.
Amazing, thank you. That's super useful. Okay, so we've got another question, and this will probably have to be our last one because we're at 45 minutes. But so it's a question that came in about how is the anti-apartheid campaign influencing these current wave of actions against Barclays? And I wondered if, Chris, you could take this one.
Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, so I guess what a lot of people maybe don't realize, especially people in my generation who are like currently students, was that Barclays Bank was like huge in financing like the South African apartheid regime. And like even as the movement grew worldwide and there was so much pressure on the apartheid state, Barclays was a really important like factor in sustaining its like longevity. And so at the time, as part of the anti-apartheid movement, lots of civil society groups, but I think especially student groups, the student movement and students' unions, played a really big part in challenging Barclays on their financing of this like horrible injustice. And so that involved kind of doing a lot of the very similar things, a lot of the similar tactics that we're now adopting to challenge Barclays' financing of the fossil fuel industry. And so actually one thing that I only learned the other day, right, is that People and Planet used to be called Third World First. One of their first ever actions was a march or an action against Barclays for financing apartheid. So it's a full circle for our network. But yeah, like that movement won. That movement successfully challenged Barclays to the extent that they stopped financing apartheid, and apartheid fell, at least in the form that it had then. And yeah, I think that is just absolutely something that we as anti-fracking campaigners or activists need to bear in mind, that the civil society movement or student movement has already taken on Barclays over its financing of such a terrible injustice, and it won. So we can do this again. We can learn from our past successes, and ensure like the kind of the environment of students' unions or the student movement is way different to back then, but it doesn't mean that we can't learn from those like incredible successes, and they can't inspire us and they can't drive us on to victory, which I'm confident they will.
Wow, that was amazing. So we've hit time, but I just want to say massive thank you to all of our speakers for working so hard and being so inspiring, and I hope that it has kind of motivated others of us to kind of get more involved in the week of action on the 24th to 29th of October, and just generally in taking down Barclays and taking down fracking. So huge thank you again to the speakers, and huge thank you to all of you who've been watching online or will watch at some point, and for everyone that's going to be part of this amazing week of action in October. So there's resources on the website. Look out for them, register your action online on the little map so we can see it and we can all feel part of this movement together. And thank you so much, and see you on the streets. Bye guys.